Hi class. So today what we're going to learn is a pretty important skill, which is what is an integer. I don't know why that didn't work. Excuse me. What is an integer? So you've actually already learned what an integer is because it is a review concept from 6th grade last year, but we just want to make sure that we understand. And in order to understand what an integer is, well, that means we have to understand all number classifications. So numbers work like a big circle or a big concentric rings, like a Russian doll. You open one, another one's inside. But we work from the inside out. So what we'll do first is we will do our first classification. And our first classification is going to be right in here in a blue box. I like boxes just because I'm not the best at drawing circles. It doesn't matter what you use. It could be a circle, it could be a triangle, although you might have a hard time writing. But the first box is going to be what we call a natural number. So our first type of number classification is natural numbers. And they're going to be represented in blue, right? Natural numbers. Okay, so what are natural numbers? Well, natural numbers are, excuse me, numbers that we use to order in math. Finger numbers, I'm going to put in parentheses. What the heck does finger numbers mean? Well, basically what it means is it's any number that can be represented on your fingers. So the smallest natural number that can be represented on our fingers is 1. We can hold up one finger to represent 1. We can hold up 2 fingers to represent 2. 3 fingers, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We get the idea. What we cannot have, I'm going to actually make my box just a tad bit bigger. Because a lot of kids say, well, can't I just make 0 with a fist? Sure, but that's not on your fingers, right? We're talking about fingers. Well, then I can just put up 0 fingers. But if it can't be represented with a finger, then it's not a natural number. That's how we kind of represent this. 0 is not a natural number. What else is not a natural number? People say, well, I can just cut my finger in half, and that would be like 3.5. No, we don't want anyone cutting their fingers in half. It's not easy to represent a decimal or a fraction on your fingers. So those also aren't natural numbers. Okay, what else isn't a natural number? Notice we can't have any negative numbers. You can't just put a minus sign with one finger in front of another one and say -1. Nope, we can't represent negatives on our fingers. So it's literally numbers 1, because that's the smallest number we can represent on our fingers, up to really technically infinity, because you can kind of just keep going through. But what's important to know is there are no 0. I'm going to put a dash through it just so you know it's a 0. And there's no negatives, right? And there's no decimals or fractions. So there's no parts of numbers. So those are natural numbers. They're numbers that we can use in math in order to order in math. So like first place, second place, third place. We don't say 0 place. We don't say -1 place, right? It starts at 1 and it goes up. All right, so then what's our next box of numbers? Well, for the next box, I'm going to use green. And I'm going to put it outside my original blue box, and you're going to see why. So our next box, our title of our numbers here is called whole numbers. Now, what are whole numbers? Well, whole numbers are obviously numbers that don't have parts. So, what's the technical definition? Well, the technical definition, it starts getting really easy. It's all natural numbers and zero. So, the only difference, whole numbers are all natural numbers. So, 1 is also a whole number. 2 is also a whole number. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, continued on, right? Those are also all whole numbers. The other addition is that a whole number does include 0. So this is the big add-in when it comes to whole numbers. It's all natural numbers and 0. So what does that mean? 0 is a whole number, not a natural number. But 1 is both a natural and a whole number. Essentially, what we can do if we look at this graphic is the numbers can go out, right? Natural numbers are whole numbers, but not all whole numbers are natural. So the arrows never go back in. So 0, like I said, is just a whole number, but not a natural number. Otherwise, it's all the same thing. Whole numbers do not have negatives, and they do not have decimals or fractions. All right. So then what's our final little box today? There's more number classifications, but we're going to stop at this third one because this is the main one that we wanted to be at. And we're going to use black for this. And it's our third box. So let me give you a hint, by the way. Just like natural numbers expanded into whole numbers also expand into integers. So this is also going to go up. So what's our last category? A lot of you probably guessed it because I kind of just said it and gave it away. And it goes right here. The final classification is called an integer. Well, what is an integer? That was the whole idea of this whole lecture, right? Well, an integer, I zoomed out a little bit just to get a better perspective. Oops. An integer is all whole numbers and their opposites, aka negatives. So, again, just like below, whole numbers are integers. Whole numbers are integers. So any number that you see that is a whole number is also an integer. So what does that mean? Well, that means, we did it in black, 0 is an integer, 1's an integer, 2's an integer, 3's an integer, 4's an integer, 5's an integer, 6, ... Those are all integers still. Where does it change? Well, it's all whole numbers, and so we added something else, they're opposites. So what is the opposite of 1? -1. What's the opposite of 2? -2. What's the opposite of 3? -3. And it goes on. So basically, the addition in integers, is that we add negatives. However, notice there's still no decimals or fractions. So when we talk about integers, we talk about whole numbers and their opposites, okay? If this was on a number line, we aren't doing any parts to our number line. Rather, 0 goes in the middle. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are all integers, right? They're whole numbers that are comprised of 0 and every ordering number or numbers we can represent on our hand. No decimals or fractions. And then we go their opposites. So all of these right here on this number line are considered an integer. Okay? Integers do not comprise of fractions and decimals, but they are positive and negative whole numbers. All right. Hopefully this helps as we travel on in through the next part of our chapter. Thank you.